Hello there folks, how you doing? How about that for a view? Absolutely grand. Let me introduce a subscriber, John, who's going to join me on this epic adventure. I've been hinting about this adventure over the last few weeks. We're planning on taking the bikes deep into the hills for a few days folks, so a bit of fun and we're going to take you along. So John and I are just putting the final touches to cinching down the gear on the bikes. We're going to get rolling, so looking forward to it.
Me too. Let's go then.
Trying something new with the cameras folks. I've got you perched on the handlebars there. You're shaking about a wee bit, but we'll see if any of this footage is usable. So we're on the road, Loch Rannoch on my left. We're going along a wee bit and then we're going to climb up into the hills. Up beneath Ben Vorlich, if you know that hill. The Scottish Mountaineering Council guide says Ben Vorlich must be one of the least climbed hills in Scotland. It is quite remote. I'm not so sure about that claim though, because there's a massive cairn on the top of it and it's all properly built. And a beautiful day. The bikes are quite heavy, we're aiming to be out for a day or two. Well folks, it's officially hot. It's gone beyond warm.
Very.
Opened the top button of my shirt. How you doing, John?
A little warm.
A wee bit warm.
You said it'd be easy this afternoon, Dave.
Aye. Yes, it's quite hot. You recognise the hill, folks? It's Schiehallion, one of the well-kent hills of Scotland. We're heading in that direction, which is uphill. You're good to go there, John.
A bit more.
A wee bit more. Really is a fine bike you've got there, John. Craigavady. So I mentioned earlier when we were cycling up the track that we cycled under Ben Vorlich, which is regarded as one of the least visited hills in Scotland. Well, if Ben Vorlich is not visited very often, then I'm pretty sure that Craigavady is visited less often. But we're so close and it's such a bonny afternoon. John and I are going to take a hike over and bag the summit. We'll probably regret it later on tired legs when the light is fading and we're looking for a place to set up the tents. But for now it seems like the sensible thing to do, so you up for it, John?
Aye, we're up for it.
Let's go.
It's really good.
Nice one.
Aye.
Well folks, coffee break's over. That was grand.
It was.
Coffee and cookies in the afternoon. Afternoon, it's 5:10, John.
It's tea time.
It's tea time.
No wonder we were hungry.
Yeah, we've got a ways to go yet, but it's too good an evening to stop here. We're gonna cycle on a bit, folks. We've got a stalker's track to find, and then a bit of cross-country work to do, and then after that we've got to find a place to put the tents up. So it's a glorious evening, but there's a lot of work ahead of us. We'll take you with us and see how it unfolds. Enough blethering, let me get this rucksack shouldered. Oh, smooth surface.
Surface, yeah.
Very nice. Right, John, what I think we'll do is we'll ditch the bikes at this Y junction here, and we'll go across there and we'll look for the start of the track.
Yeah, because when I got down as far as the hydro, the map showed the path coming just behind it,
Aye.
but I couldn't see it.
I think we'll find it in there.
Okay.
He says, famous last words, let's go and have a wee look.
Yeah.
I've got the camera running here so the folks are listening to us blethering away. Folks, we run out of track here. And we've got to find a little used stalker's path. It takes us through the hills for a few kilometres and then a river crossing to get to another track beside which we're going to camp tonight. So this is make or break today for this part of the journey anyway.
And you said today was the easy day.
This is the easy day, yeah. Well, but it all could change on a dime, which is just ahead. Let's go and see if we can find the track. Well folks, you're bouncing about in the front of the bike there, pointing into the sun as well. You can tell that the sun is low, it's getting late. John and I are getting a wee bit tired now and a bit hungry, but we want to get this bit of the, I can't call this a cycle ride, we want to get this bit of hiking behind us, reach the other track and then either set up camp at the end of the track or maybe spin down it a wee bit, but for sure we want to get this bit done and dusted. Not far now. This is a bit of unique filming here, folks. I've not tried this before. Up we go. There we are. Wobbling you about a bit there, folks. You're on the handlebars again. One of my camera mounts has failed already on day one. We had a backup.
Are we nearly there yet, Dave?
Yeah, I've got about 200 kilometres to go. Depends where there is. We can see the down the Spiddle track just over your shoulder there, folks. And what we've discovered is the old Stalkers track that comes from the end of the Doonish track to here doesn't exist anymore, replaced by an Argo track that runs through the bog, but it's been quite dry, so it was fairly easy going actually, but a little bit disconcerting that despite scouting here, there and everywhere, we couldn't find the correct track. But we're here now and we can see the easy track ahead of us. We've got a river to cross, but I think looking at Loch Garry there with no water in it, I'm guessing that it's going to be a hop and a skip to get across the river. It's not going to present any problems today. And then we'll see if we can find a place with the slightest hint of a breeze to put the tents up. So let's crack on. Well folks, this is home for the night. As you can tell from the bug nets, it's going to be quite a
Buggy night.
buggy night. It is indeed. They're not quite swarming yet, but there's a lot of them. So, midges that is. So we'll get the tent up, we get a bit of food on the go. I probably won't film very much folks because I don't know how well you can see this, but I'm pretty much covered in midges already, so I'll leave the camera rolling for a wee while. Outside and then dive in with it, but it's going to be quite difficult eating. Not going to be the easiest thing to do. Perfect spot for dinner, folks. Loch Garry, looking up to the Boar of Badenoch and the Sow of Atholl, looking back down to Craigavaddy where we enjoyed a wee climb earlier today. We've got the usual pasta with some veggies. What did you have, John?
A very expensive spaghetti bolognese.
Pasta as well, yeah?
Aye.
That'll fuel us up for tomorrow. Morning folks, can you hear the hiss of the stoves? Boy oh boy, the midges are fearsome this morning. Try to get some coffee on and a bit of porridge but keep moving at the same time. Flat, calm and misty murky, just perfect for the midges. We're surrounded by hundreds of square miles of midgie habitat. I've got one or two inside my bug net here. Coffee porridge and midges this morning, folks. Wonderful mixture.
These carrier systems are again things you think of in the night.
Yeah.
I've only ever used them for overnight,
Right.
and for a 3-day, it just needs a proper rack like yours.
It's just a beautiful view down the loch here. It's a bonny view, folks. Going down Loch Garry. There's not very much water in it just now though. It's been dry. It made for an easy crossing of the river yesterday evening. John's just over your shoulder there. He's tying the last bits and pieces on his bike. We'll get out of here soon. So we've got a little bit more track cycling, then we're heading round in a big loop. We're heading to the top end, as I call it, of Loch Ericht. I'll put the camera on once or twice. So we've got a day of undulations, and then at one point we've got another steep climb ahead of us.
You didn't tell me about that, Dave.
Oh, I forgot about that, John. Yeah, aye, there's another wee climb. Well folks, I've got you sitting on the handlebars again. A wee bit of improvisation to the bracket that broke yesterday. How are you feeling, John? You doing good?
Yes, thank you, very good. Nice shady bit.
Aye, this is better. So we switched the cameras off for a wee while. We needed to make a bit of distance this morning. We've stopped and had, I don't know if it was a late breakfast or an early lunch, but we had some more food, plenty fluids, and now we're enjoying a kilometre of shade, but we're going to be back in the sun in a minute. So we're going down the side of Loch Ericht now, folks. We're going to go halfway down the loch, and then we have a big pull up towards Loch Katik. You see me there, folks, you got the sun in your eyes. That doesn't look very inviting, John, eh? We've got a bog ahead of us, but it's a lot easier than it has been on past journeys through this way, folks. But it's looking pretty horrible for the next wee bitty. What do you think, John, left or right?
Straight through the middle, I think.
Straight through the middle.
Mind the midges.
It looks like porridge, peat porridge. Let's keep going. Looking a bit soupy again, John. I'm not sure if you can hear me over the crunch of the tyres, folks, but John and I are on a decent track now and we're heading downhill eventually towards Glen Spean. We're going to go into the trees very shortly. There's a lovely bit of birch woodland down here. I might switch the camera on in a wee while and show you the trees as we're cycling through. This is Lochen Hierbach, folks. Excuse my pronunciation. There's two Lochens here, both by the same name, with a wee, almost like a causeway separating them. And the two lochans are of the same name, and the two hills away to my right have very similar names. They're both Binions, Binion Schuss and Binion Schuss. Again, excuse my terrible Gaelic pronunciations. You feel that breeze on your face, folks? We've found a windy spot. We might have a trouble-free night tonight, away from these confounded midges. I think John's away to get some water. I'm going to break out the tent and I'm going to point it straight into the wind. I got a beautiful view of the Rocky Binion right in front of me there, and then out of sight over that ridge there is Loch Lagan and Craig Meggie. And Craig Petre, the Munro in behind there. What a glorious spot. Fingers crossed for a midge-free night, folks. Let me get this tent up. It's going to be a bit wet, this tent, from this morning, and there'll be a fair few midges on it, but they'll get blown away. What's the blowing? I've got some pasta on the go. Pasta again tonight, folks. And I've got a frying pan full of courgettes. And I've got some olives and what else? And a little bit of Parmesan cheese. So I've fried my courgettes with a wee touch of olive oil. Just a wee tinge of brown in them, folks, just the way I like it. I'll cook up my pasta, put in some pasta sauce, tomato sauce, and then I've got some tomato concentrate. I'll squirt a wee bit of that in to thicken it up a little bit, and then I have a packet of pitted olives with garlic, and I'll pour the whole lot in, and I'll have the courgette on the side and a wee cup of tea here. I'll recharge my tea. Morning, folks. Welcome to day 3 of our mini adventure. The sunshine's gone, the wind direction's changed, but the midges have also gone, so we're not complaining about that, eh, John?
Happy days.
Happy days. Happy days, right enough. Looks like we're going to have our coffee unmolested this morning. Sorry?
No, I'm good, thanks. I've got plenty, John.
So it's all good this morning, folks. We start off with a cup of coffee in the breeze, and we cycle down the loch here with the wind behind us, and then we have a long descent down into Glen Spean. The day changes a wee bit after that. We've got a fairly brutal ascent after that. We want to go up and over and then drop down towards Stratosian, if you know where that is. We'll switch the camera on now and again so you can see what we're up to. I'm going to flip this tent over and let it air a little bit before I pack it away.
You're having some porridge as well, Dave?
Sorry?
You're having some porridge too?
I think so.
It's
We started off.
Yeah.
Well folks, we're fed and watered. Coffee and porridge again this morning. We're more or less packed up and good to go. You all ready for day 3 of the adventure, John?
Very nearly.
Very nearly, yeah. So, like I was saying earlier, we've got an easy cycle for the first part of the morning anyway. I'm going to get this camera tied on the back of the bike, get everything cinched down and we'll get away. We'll get back to you in a wee while folks, show you some of the journey again today. Coffee time folks. We've got a fairly brutal ascent which I've mentioned a few times in this video. We go up to the top and then drop down to Strathossian. It's a little bit of a challenging ascent because we start off down in Glenspeen, we climb very steeply up, you gain a lot of altitude and then you drop down to the bottom of the track here, so we're literally at the bottom of the hill now, so we had a fair bit of climbing to get to the lowest point. We're going to have a cup of coffee and a chewy bar, a wee rest, and then we'll set to it. Well folks, we're getting there. It's a long haul, quite warm. How you doing there, John?
Are we nearly there yet?
We're nearly somewhere. Don't know where there is. water reservoir that's coming in just to view there. Those of the Black Mount ahead.
So we're on night 3 of our 4-day trip, Dave, and it was time. I think there's some questions I've got for you that I think other subscribers might want to know a bit more about you. Certainly I did. It was a couple of years ago when I was doing some research to find out some information about some routes around here, and I came across some routes you'd done. I found you on YouTube, enjoyed your channel, joined up as a subscriber to it, and then I bumped into you in Stirling at a Chris Bonington lecture.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was a little 8-year-old lad coming up to my hero saying, are you the Dave off the YouTube? My wife was tickled pink on that. And then we carried on chatting to each other during lockdown, and I think that's the time when you had this sort of crazy idea of taking a subscriber with you on a trip.
Yes, yeah, the first time ever, John.
Yeah.
So you're the first.
Yes.
Yeah.
I might be the last if
Well, I don't
give
know.
the last few days.
Yeah.
But I do feel like I've won the Dave Outdoors equivalent of a Willy Wonka golden ticket, to be honest.
Yeah, well, there you
I've
go.
had a fantastic time.
Good stuff. I'm glad
Yeah.
you enjoyed it. It's been great.
Yeah.
It's been a brilliant trip and quite a challenging trip. You know, it's a long route through the hills, 4 days.
Aye,
Yeah.
aye. But some of the things I found out about you just on the trip and chatting to you before, things like, Dave, so tell us a bit more, how did you get into the mountains as a boy?
Well, you know, when I was young, I was really interested in the outdoors, and I've always been a little bit of a loner. I'm really happy with my own company. Is maybe the easiest way to say it. You know, maybe a little bit antisocial as well at times. And so when I was young, I was able to get out into the woods, and I went down to the river, and I learned how to build shelters, how to make fire and cook up whatever bits and pieces I could scrounge from my mother's pantry, and I just kind of loved it all. And then the hills were always there from I was a tiny wee lad of about 5 or 6 years old, probably one of my earliest memories of being on a bus and going round a corner and seeing a hill for the first time, and realizing that hills and mountains actually existed. I'd never seen one before, and I was just transfixed by it. And so I always wanted to get to the hills, and they've been a constant in my life, John. And as I grew up a little bit, I was able to explore the hills fairly close to home. And then as a young boy, you wouldn't get away with it in this day and age, but 13, 14-year-old boy on my bits and pieces bike made up from scrap, I was able to cycle up into the highlands and explore some of these wonderful places. And then I was very fortunate that I was able to make a career out of being in the outdoors as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So how many mountains or hills in Scotland have you climbed, Dave?
Well, you know, I've oft been asked that question, and I don't actually know. So I've done a recorded round of the Munros, Corbetts and Grahams, which is about a little under 800 hills. I've been over, I think I've probably been over the Munros a couple of times. Certainly I've been over most of them a couple of times. I've done many of the Corbetts on multiple occasions. We did a Graham, Craigavaddy the other day there. I've been over that several times. And then the sub 2,000 foot hills, done loads of them, and then bumps and tops. So I had a spreadsheet at one time, and I got up to about 2,500 hills, and then I just gave up recording. So I don't know, probably a wee bit north of 3,000, but I really don't know.
So with all that under your belt, why do you stick around climbing? What are you going to do next in Scotland, Dave?
Well, I love trips like this. So we've gone through the hills rather than over them.
Yeah.
And we've enjoyed the best of the views, and we've climbed up here to get away from the midges tonight, and camping at over 500 metres, and we're just tucked under a Munro there. It would be the easiest thing in the world to wander up there this evening and bag the summit, but I just enjoy travelling through Scotland. And so the last 4 days, I got a map in my bag, but I've never looked at it. I just like kind of all the memories and navigating in a kind of macro sense. So we're looking across there, we can see the Buchel, we can see down to Bidian, and I just enjoy the familiarity of all that. It feels like home.
Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah. But some of the other stuff on the channel, Dave, going back a little bit, maybe the earliest times of your channel, you showed us glimpses of your sort of your botanist past and
Yes,
with some landscaping projects in China.
Aye.
How did you get into that, and what made you go across to China in the first place?
Well, I did a degree in horticulture, and then I did a master's after that. I was always interested in working in the outdoors. That was a big driver, and I'm probably one of the worst. I'm not a botanist, but I did a lot of field botany. I'm a horticulturist that likes the outdoors, and I'm not a great lover of flowers and things like that, although I do like plants, and I especially like mountain plants. But maybe in the beginning, it was a means to an end, and as I grew older, I get more interested in gardening and in my garden. So I worked for a UK agency that had a lot of emphasis and focus on conservation. I did a lot of field work. I was employed as a plant collector, a plant hunter.
Yeah.
So even in my lifetime, these still existed. And I went out to collect seeds for conservation and research purposes. And then changing international law, John, meant that it was really difficult to collect seed, especially in developing or emerging countries, and bring it back to the UK. And I saw an opportunity there rather than a problem. The opportunity was to do the research in country, and that for me was great, because that meant I could go out to the Himalayas, and instead of collecting the seeds and coming back, I could collect the seeds and stay there. And so I built a field station, an international research station that was there for biodiversity research and conservation, and I lived there for, well, the first 10 years that I lived at that remote location was without electricity or running water. It was high, about 12,000 feet up in the Himalayas. I went out still as a field worker, collecting specimens, bringing them back to the station and then growing them there, and then sending some samples back to the UK or to the United States or to other botanic gardens in Europe and so on and so forth. So this was part of a botanic garden network, if you like. Yeah. And yeah, I just absolutely loved that.
Brilliant. So is a horticulturalist, not a botanist, allowed to have a favourite plant or tree?
Yeah, well, I've definitely got a favourite tree, and that's easy. The lime or the linden, Tilia, which flowers in the summer, and it's got that beautiful scent. That's a favourite since boyhood. I absolutely love these trees. I love the scent, and I love the shape of them. I love climbing up into them and camping beneath them. In terms of flowers and plants, yeah, there's a lot. There's some that I've got really fond memories. So there's, and this is where it gets a little bit complicated, because I'm not very good on common names, because with a scientific background, we only use Latin names. So there's a plant called Solms Lobachia, Pulcherrima. There's a mouthful for you. It's a high altitude plant that grows in a really tough, wild environment in the screes, and it has kind of metallic blue flowers. It emerges through the snow in really tough conditions, and it blooms and it produces seed, and it just lives amongst the rocks. That's a real favourite. And there's one or two others. I've collected some plants that have been thought to be extinct or have turned out to be new species. And because I did a little bit towards their protection or conservation or their recognition, then they're favourites as well.
Is there one called Dave?
No, there's nothing named after me. The plants that I collected that were new to science, or species nova to give it its scientific name, when they were eventually named, I wanted them named after the location from where they were collected. So, so for example, I found a new species of rhododendron. I found it in an area of mountains in southwest China, in Yunnan province, called Maxiong. And so the rhododendron is called Rhododendron maxiongense. It commemorates the mountain from whence it came, rather than the Scots pseudo-explorer that found it.
So another question we've got, and I now have some sympathy with Mo.
Yeah.
Having sort of been not your camera assistant at all, because I've not been involved in the filming, but perhaps being an extra on your film set.
Right. Okay.
So how did you and Mo meet?
Well, it's a long story, and I'll give you the shortest version that I can. So I worked for a UK conservation area organisation for 30-something years. And then there was an opportunity for me to retire from that, and I did, and I transferred doing very similar work, but as a professor with the Chinese Academy of Sciences. I don't think I'm a real professor, by the way, folks. It was a title that was given to me, an associate professor, not a full professor. So I was working as an associate professor with the Chinese Academy of Sciences. Mo was in Scotland doing her master's and her PhD, and she got I suppose a kind of internship or a summer job working for the old institute in Scotland that I previously worked for. And so she had heard a little bit about this kind of wild and rather errant person that had previously worked in China for the institute that in Scotland that she was now serving. Anyway, cutting to the chase, she came across to a meeting in China. So she was working on the UK side. She came across to a meeting in China that I was present at. It was in the high Himalayas. We met in this big meeting room, very formal, big table in the middle of the room. Down one side was all the Scottish or British delegates, with Mo sitting in the middle next to the director as the she was kind of working as a minder but also as a translator, interpreter. I was sitting on the other side, on the Chinese side, all Chinese people, and then I was sitting right opposite Mo. And we kind of joked and said, we hadn't met before. I said, I'm Dave. She said, I'm Mo. And I said, I used to work for your organisation. She said, I know, I heard. And I said, we should change places. There's something wrong here. Anyway, that's how we met. And she came back to Scotland. I carried on dadding about in the Himalayas. We corresponded by email for a year or two, and then I decided that I'd kind of like a little bit of more of Mo in my life, and I came back. So I came back to Scotland, and I'm not saying that Mo and I have settled down, because I'm not the most settled of person, but we have a brilliant life together, and she's been absolutely amazing in my life.
Yeah, that's lovely. So what gave you the motivation to start the YouTube channel off, Dave?
Well, yeah, it's been running for a couple of years now. I'm not very IT literate, and also you ask, why do I keep going to the hills? And sometimes I was going out on the hills and I was just doing things, and I didn't want the summit to be the purpose or the focus every time I went out, or just a journey. I wanted to kind of try and do something. So I spent a lot of time camping and bothying. I did a bit of sketching, a bit of writing. And then Mo said to me, why don't you record some of your travels? Because we watched some outdoor channels on YouTube, and she said you could do that. Not very sure that I could. I started off very humble beginnings, and just a little happy snapper camera that had a video mode on it, and I kind of got into it a little bit, and I have some absolutely amazing subscribers. Thumbs up to you guys, folks. I got some lovely people that follow the adventures and they leave comments, and so I kind of started off doing it for myself, and now I share it with some wonderful people. So
yeah. I wondered how you keep the motivation going, though, because I can see starting off a new project and it's quite exciting. You start putting YouTube material up, but after 2 years, what keeps you going at it?
Yeah, well, John, it seems like I'm out and about a lot with the cameras, but I don't film every trip, and often I don't even film every other trip. So this summer there's been a bit of a hiatus on the channel. I haven't filmed very much at all, but in fact I've been out a lot, and so the channel is there, and I like to keep it on a slow boil, and it's easier to be motivated to keep it ticking over, and then to do something like this. This is a 4-day trip. We'll probably get a 40-50 minute video out of all that work that we did all through all these hills, and I hope that people really appreciate that, because it's a big effort. But then thereafter I'll go and I'll have some self-indulgent time, and I'll have a trip just for myself, really. So that's, I think, why I'm able to keep it going, because it's not all pervasive.
No. And the final question I've got for you is a real off-the-wall one, because we were sat having second rounds of pasta today.
Yes.
And I noticed in your kit bag a really bent spoon. So I hear in your house, Dave, all your spoons are bent. Why is this?
Well, yeah, that's because I have to make them fit into my cook set. so, our house, we have a lovely home, especially we moved house in October last year. Mo and I share a lovely home together. We're building and landscaping our garden, but there's no doubt at all, our home is dominated by our passion for the outdoors. So the garage will never have a vehicle in it. It's a gear room. It's full of tents and sleeping bags and all sorts of things. And we have an office each in the house. Mo uses hers for proper work, and I use mine for editing and uploading videos, and it's full of books about adventure and maps and all sorts of things. So the house is very much kind of dominated by our love of the outdoors, even to the cutlery drawer in the kitchen. You open it and there's camping knives and there's bent spoons because they fit inside the cup or inside the pot or whatever. So
that's the answer to that one.
That's the answer, yeah.
Oh, there you go. That's all I got for you tonight, Dave. And thank you once more for letting us into your life and seeing your adventures. It's really appreciated. You help us live the outdoors vicariously through you.
Well, that's grand. It's my pleasure. It really is, John. It's been wonderful having you along. Great company, good fun. You put up with all my stories. You can tell the folks that I put some stories up. I blether away to the camera, but I've been blethering non-stop for 4 days. So John,
it's true. John
knows stories from here, there, and everywhere throughout my travels across the world, because I worked in other places than the Himalayas, and it's nice to be able to share that. And I love the comments that come back, folks. I always do my best to answer them, so I think the respect is very much mutual. So thank you, John.
Thanks, Dave.
So folks, that's the questions. We're not quite going to wind the video up here, but we're more or less done. We're camping high tonight to keep away from the midges, and we're going to break camp early in the morning. I've already cooked up my breakfast. It's sitting on my bike there. I've got some coffee there, and I've got this bulky pockets is full of my breakfast. I've got some fruit and some granola bars, and then John and I are going to cycle up to the high point, and then we drop down to Loch Aik there, and then scoot along to Loch Rannoch. And then John's going to lead the way after that because we're on his home turf. I'll get back to my car, the trusty old Duster, and down the road, and I'll get this edited up for you. So thanks for tuning in, folks. I'll say bye-bye before we kind of finally wind the video up, but it's a bit of a thing in the channel that I say bye-bye twice, so we'll get back to you soon.
Bye.
Good night, folks. Well, folks, we've broken camp, we've had our breakfast, we're just heading back down to the track here. We've got a wee bit of climbing this morning to get to the high point, which is really just over my shoulder there, and then from there on it's all downhill. We roll down back to the loch side, and then we have a road cycle back along to John's place where my car is parked, and then I have the long drive home. So thank you very much for tuning in, folks. It's very much appreciated. Hope you enjoyed this wee adventure. Thanks to John for coming along on this trip and putting up with me for the last 4 days.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Dave.
Glad you enjoyed it, John. So I'm not going to film the road cycle. I think you've probably seen enough of John and I cycling along for the time being, but I will get back to you again soon, folks. So until the next time, stay safe, take care, and as always, thanks again for tuning in. Bye for now, folks.
Bye.